Hello, you're tuning into AWANI Review with me, Cynthia Ng. On this episode, we will be taking a closer look at the buy now, pay later landscape, a new mode of payment that has emerged in recent years that is changing the retail sector. Now, buy now, pay later does exactly what it says, which is consumers get the opportunity to buy something now and pay for it at a later date through installments at no extra cost. On the show today, joining me is Hula, a buy now, pay later platform from Singapore that has recently expanded into Malaysia. Country manager Jason is joining me. Jason, great to have you on the show. Thank you for making time for this.
Thank you, Cynthia. Appreciate you having me on the show.
Now, Jason, let's talk about the buy now, pay later concept. It has taken off in the past few years, and these services are particularly attractive to younger consumers who either do not have a credit card or do not want. How is Hula any different? If you give us a background on what you guys do.
Sure. I think the BNPL space, right, short form for buy now, pay later, has really heated up in Malaysia in the recent months, right? So Hula has been here since 2019 when we started off, and we have been the Asia's leading buy now, pay later ecosystem that we drive both values for merchants as well as consumers, right? So I think in terms of the space, with more and more competition coming into this arena of BNPL, one of the things for Hula is we have that first mover advantage here in this region. We have a very strong team with deep experience in payments, and we have a full localized team here in Malaysia. And I'm really proud to say that we have got from our BDs to our relationship to marketing to operations. So we are a full suite of teams supporting the needs of the local merchants that we deal with, whether you're a global brand or whether you're a local brand, right? And one thing really just to highlight, Cynthia, is about responsible affordability. That's something our founders have really believed in from the first day they started this startup. And it's something that we fully believe in. It's our values. We've seen many BNPL players in the market which promotes people to spend, right? Sometimes beyond their means. But we actually believe a lot in spending responsibly. It's about allowing customers to really take control of their spending rather than overspend, which we pride ourselves, right? And that's something we truly believe until today itself.
Now, spending responsibly is an interesting angle, which I'm going to go in a bit later on the show. So I did give Hula a try just a couple of weeks back just to test out what it's like. And what I found appealing is the accessibility. It's easy to use. And another appealing aspect of buy now, pay later platforms, I think, is you can purchase things right now without the extra cost. But I must ask here, right, what is the catch for consumers? Is there a catch?
Good things come in small packages, and there's no catch, right? So I think you have mentioned it, Cynthia, that there's no hidden cost. There's no interest fee for consumers. We are really here to enable consumers to be able to manage their finances, their spending. It's okay to buy what you want, right? But you got to be assured, you got to be responsible in not overspending it. So, and more importantly, we allow the debit card and credit card users to enjoy this benefit, which has predominantly over the years, credit card installments is the way to go for big ticket items. And with more people using debit card, it actually allows them to control more of their finances and spending. So definitely no catch for consumers. You can be assured of that.
Okay. Now this growing availability of buy now, pay later services, you mentioned spending responsibly. It is, however, raising some concerns that it might encourage people to splurge or use money that they do not have. What are your thoughts about this? And have you noticed such behaviors on your platform?
Sure, I think that's a good point. And there's always this misconception about BNPL or buy now, pay later. So like I mentioned, right, our motto and vision since day one was about responsible affordability. And how we do it is we do a lot of proactive approaches in delivering this ongoing education to consumers about how to spend responsibly. That's on the education piece, the messaging piece. So going back to, there's nothing wrong with wanting to spend, but we have our own proprietary engine, risk engine, and we take full pride of it because we own that piece. It's founded by our CTO right now. So he owns this piece where we actually monitor the behavior of people spending. We actually reject transactions when we see users moving in the wrong direction. When there's a cap that's hit, we actually encourage users to pay off outstanding before they can even make more new orders. We limit the number of orders they can have at a certain time. So these are stringent limitations that we put in, especially for new users, so that their active orders are being monitored. they know what they need to really pay, and it's not a free-flowing, free cash for you to spend in that sense.
I'd like to touch on what you raised just now about putting a stop to people who are spending in the wrong direction. What do you mean by that? And how does all this data, what does it tell you, and when do you put a stop at it?
Sure. So I think our engine reads all the characteristics, the behavior of people buying, in terms of their buying pattern, right? The timing, do they serve many different places? Are they associated to possible, overspending criteria? So we have this all in place, and we take that action. Like, we actually decline certain transactions just to be truthful to you, and just for your knowledge as well, that as much as we want merchants to enjoy, we are also ensuring that consumers spend within what they can actually spend, right? So in essence, based on existing users that we have an understanding of their spending power, their spending payment pattern. We take that into consideration, and we actually allow maybe more once they have hit a certain threshold of, hey, this guy makes payment promptly, he doesn't overspend, right? So we actually allow them to, hey, now you can actually have a bit more active orders in that sense. Whereas if you're a first-time user, we want to have that limitation where, hey, you can enjoy it now, but also prove to us that you're able to pay, and then we allow you to, get more and more and enjoy with Hula.
Does Hula perform credit checks on customers, or do you extend service to people with bad credit or people without jobs? How do you ensure that you have, I guess I would say, quality consumers who will pay their debt?
Interesting, yeah. So I think it goes back to the first of, hey, you're a new user, you never know, right, whether they are good, they are bad debtors, or whether they have poor payment performance. So that's something that we take on, right? We read and we understand the data. So the limit that they have is actually at a minimal where they can start to spend, right? And we crunch these numbers, we crunch this data, we come up with an understanding of, hey, is this guy really someone that has been paying promptly? Do they look like they're going in the wrong trend? So we have all those initial fix in place just to ensure that we are safeguarded from both merchants as well as ourselves, right? So all the red flags are being picked up by the system. So the credit check that we do is a KYC process where, customers have to give their identification number. It gets validated from our OTP. So that's something that we do.
Okay. Now, I can totally understand how credit can be positive, especially during an economic crisis like now. Being able to defer payments at zero interest rate is very helpful. But I guess what I'm getting at is, this sounds like a recipe for debt accumulation. What's stopping someone who is blacklisted on other BNPL platforms or other banks to sign up to a platform like Hula? What are the measures in place or checks to ensure that this doesn't spiral out of control?
Gotcha. Yeah. So I think, like I said, right, the first and foremost is really the whole infrastructure that we have, our in-house technology that builds the capability of understanding even, how this consumer has been transacting throughout their phones, right? In terms of the places that they've been digitally, the sites that they've been using. Again, we don't have this credit check like you mentioned, where it goes down to the details. But it's really allowing that to happen first, and then we crunch those numbers to see whether it makes sense. And we take any red flags along the way. And we have a team, not just from the technology piece, but we also have a strong risk assessment team just to monitor this on an ongoing basis, right? So those are some checks and balance that we do in our business.
All right. Now, so bear with me a bit because I'm trying to get into detail about how Hula works. And let's also talk about what happens if the consumer is unable to pay or make his payments. I understand how Hula works is that you can make a purchase upfront, and you can stagger the payments into 3 separate payments, monthly payments, correct? So what happens if somebody is unable to pay the second or third payment or cancels the credit card? What are the steps taken by Hula?
Sure. And that's a very, very valid question. So I think the first and foremost, whenever we encounter such issues, we have a team that actually reaches out to individual consumers, right? Really just to understand the reasons behind of the delay. With the whole pandemic happening now, the whole situation, we are empathetic to know that could it be a loss of job, right? Or could it be a certain reasons that affected your income? And then we work out that plan with that in terms of helping them to be able to clear certain outstandings that they have. So we do that, right? I think on the front foot, and we do it quite proactively just to ensure we hear the consumers and before we take any actions on them, right? I think understanding them during this situation is definitely key in terms of our customer experience that we want to give them.
Let's talk about Hula in Malaysia now. I understand that you do have quite a number of merchants, at least 300, and some big names like Fashion Valet, JD, and I saw that you're also signed on partnering with Astro Go Shop to make to make payments via Hula. Tell us about what benefits do merchants get by signing on to the platform?
Sure, great, and thanks for recognizing all the big brands that we have. And just to let you know, we also have a lot of local brands that we work with. Like we've got Alexan with us, right? We've got Crocs now with us. We've got Sogo. We've got Bata. So it's an array of merchants and brands that we bring on board. Not just for the global brands, but also the local brands that we want to really help and support. For merchants, it's pretty simple. There are really 4 problems which we realize that they face on their digital platform or in their website, right? Which is, first, it's about traffic. And how do you stimulate that, right? That's what we do. We are a store directory. We actually lead people on to these stores for our merchants, where they can look into the products that they have, the new discounts or deals that they have, and that's what we want to drive, right, in terms of the traffic. Secondly, it's about conversion. We realize more and more people are putting things in the cart, not sure whether they want to buy or whether they're going to shop in other sites, but it's more about conversion. What at the end of the day, we want people to be able to convert, and that's what merchant wants, right, within the checkout flow. Third will be the basket size. People who buy certain things like, oh, I'm going to spend, let's say, 100 ringgit today. But with BNPL, hey, I'm actually can buy a little bit more, but I know that I can afford it over 3 months. So it actually helps to increase and bring up that basket size for merchants. And finally, of course, loyalty, where you actually see consumers getting more and more loyal to the brands that our merchants have, right? That's where we drive in terms of traffic and the brand loyalty without any heavy spending for them, right? It actually sticks on for consumers, where they realize that, oh, I got JD Sports, and they realize, oh, you can also go to Decathlon, right? Hula has that. And that's what we're trying to do. It actually helps all the merchants that we have under our umbrella right now.
Now, I'd like to raise the point that you mentioned about basket size, because this is one of the interesting things I read about BNPL platforms. It's that customers do spend more when using such a platform. Just trying to get an understanding on that psyche, that behavior, and what are the trends that you are seeing in Malaysia?
Sure. I think the basket size is very interesting. It's like, when you used to plan to buy a shoe, let's say it's 300 bucks, right? Or 300 ringgit, you would think that I got to save 100 a month, and I buy it on my 3rd month. Right. So now really what we are trying to do is be enabling them to say, hey, you can actually afford to buy it now, right? But then you can split it over 3 months within your means. So that's really getting it now, and then you just split it. And then come the next month, you realize that, hey, I've got a little bit more, spending power, and I realize that upon paying my outstanding installments that I have now, I can spend another 50 per se, right? And that drags on, and that actually allows them to spend maybe a little bit more for the next coming 3 months. And then they see something that they like, they want. So it actually increases the way that they want to spend. So for a merchant perspective, people put things in a cart. People tend to delete, reduce the carts because there's just too much in the basket. But with the whole BNPL, it's actually removing the friction of wanting to convert, right? But also knowing in mind, do I have these funds in my debit card for the next 3 months? Mm-hmm. I do. Great. Then I can afford it right now, per se. So that's some real success we have seen with a lot of our merchants.
So it sounds like a win-win for consumers and merchants. Okay. So let's talk about that, because Hula is not the only platform, BNPL platform in Malaysia. There's more coming in, and how does Hula stand out from the rest? Like, what is the unique selling point here with Hula?
Definitely. It's a space where it's heating up. Everybody wants to get a piece of the pie. But being the first mover, I think that the trustworthiness is definitely there. And I think the array of merchants that we bring in, I think it shows the credibility and how we've positioned ourselves in the market, right? That we are not about really just getting everybody to spend, right? We actually enforce on the responsible affordability when we speak of our merchants. And it resonates with a lot of these people, because they realize that, hey, I don't want to be associated with a company that actually encourages people to overspend. So that's how we actually differentiate ourselves and stamp our market in Malaysia. Again, it's really transparent what we do. No hidden fees, no interest for consumers, and consumers can just enjoy it even with early repayments at no additional cost. And I just wanted to add in, in terms of the whole array of merchants that we have, it actually allows people to know that with big brands that we bring on, you can also tap into the smaller and support the local brands that we have, right? So the whole idea is merchants with big brands and huge brands on Hula attracts a lot of traffic, 100%, all right? But then it also flows to these smaller and local brands that we want to support during these times, where they also get that traffic in, where people can realize that, hey, I can also support and purchase something over this 3 months period. So really, really happy that where we have built the team and how we're actually positioning ourselves in this market right now.
Okay, I just want to pick that point about zero cost again, just to get a clarification, because you mentioned that 3 months, zero cost, but what happens after 3 months? Will there be a late recovery fee? And how does that work? Like, I mean, you did talk about helping consumers to come up with a plan for payment, but will there be additional costs? Because some of the biggest worry about this kind of platforms is that, once late fees, recovery fees are applied, the cost of BNPL platforms can massively exceed the cost of interest that you do not pay in that 3 months, or that from the traditional credit card, right? So can you please explain that to us?
Sure. I think when you talk about late payment fees, people cringe on credit cards, right? Like, the fees are exorbitant. So we do have a late recovery fee, right? But all in all, like I said, the first thing we do is really to understand the consumer first, right? In terms of the situation, what's going on, what's going through, what challenges are you facing? And then we work towards that plan. So it's not really something that we put our foot down and say that, hey, this takes place, let's say, for instance, on the first, it's gonna incur additional for you, right? But whereas we're gonna come back and say, hey, what's the real issue, right? Are you having issues, concerns? Can we help you out during this planning stage? And then we could work out whether it makes sense to even continue with that additional incurred cost, or do they seem that they're gonna struggle anyway, right? So we want to find a way out for consumers to be able to enjoy, but also learn that they have to really adapt to payments on a prompt basis. But we understand the situation first and foremost.
All right, thank you for explaining that. Now, Hula started in Malaysia in 2019. What are some of the brands that you have seen encouraging response from consumers over the past year? I mean, taking into account with the pandemic that's happening, and now we're into our third lockdown, any particular industries that you see has shown encouraging signs for improved sales thanks to a platform such as Hula?
Sure. We're very strong, I would say, in the fashion industry with the likes of Fashion Ballet, right? We've got Nelofa, we've got Tudong People. So those are really great brands that we have. But a significant shift that we see during this pandemic was really to the home decor as well as electronics, right? So we actually see that because people have started to work from home, so they're purchasing things that are relevant to them for the need of whether it's work or studies, like, TK Racing, for example, one of our huge merchants that signed on with us quite early on. They've seen their orders grew 70% over a period of past 5 months. That's because everybody needed a great chair, ergonomic, right? Really just to be comfortable working at home. So their whole sales numbers grew, right? They managed to tap into a younger segment, what Hula does, right, really is to tap into that young segment where people don't have their credit card, and most of them were using debit card. And just to share a stat, Cynthia, about 75% of TT Racing purchases were through debit cards, right? So that's actually very, very interesting, where we see that shift quite quickly when we announced that MCO 3.0 was coming up. People started to shift from fashion towards what's work from home items. Could be home decor, it could be lifestyle, it could be appliances, right? So that's the shift that we see quite quickly.
No, it's interesting you mentioned fashion items, right? I can understand home decor, but fashion items, I mean, why are people buying clothes? Because you're not going out as much these days. But interesting insights that you shared with us. I also want to talk about, talking about reaching out to younger audience, the millennials, for instance. What is the strategy here? How do you communicate with them? What you have to offer, and more importantly, spending responsibly.
Yep, exactly. Spending responsibly, responsible affordability. So that's the motto, and that's how we continue to educate, right? And it's through our merchants that we do it, through talks like this that we do it, right? Through articles that we write out about debunking the myth of BNPL, and really letting people know how BNPL can help these young millennials take control of their finances. So it's really for them to understand, right? And for us to really preach through what makes sense when you want to spend. Just not just from our tech perspective, where we limit the controls of the orders, we analyze the data, but it's really the proactive approach that we take for these youngsters, where they are not able to get a credit card per se, they will use their debit card to spend. But also to know, right, this is something that we really emphasize from the first day, is we continually engage them, and we have done that, and we will do more through community, through engagement over our social media, through influencers, right, really to highlight and bring across that message to them.
All right. Now, lastly, Jason, just want to get a sense of where is Hula heading in Malaysia, particularly what exciting developments or exciting products can we look forward to from Hula in the near future?
Definitely. I think Malaysia is just a booming market, right? Despite the pandemic that's happening, digitalization of businesses have gone skyrocket through the roof over the years. So BNPL is definitely going to stay in Malaysia. It's just going to heat up more as people want to take control of their finances, their spending. And Cynthia, you'll be surprised that people actually prefer to use debit cards than credit cards right now because they don't want to get into a pit hole where they can't get out of, right? So debit card allows them to manage their finances, and this is huge in Malaysia, where majority of the people owns a debit card. And this is something that they want to be able to spend with a period of over 3 months, where they can do an installment. The brands that we have, that's going to continue to grow. Expect to see more and more exciting brands that you know, brands, global brands, small brands, local brands that we want to support. That's definitely going to be on the table, and it's just going to ramp up as this year progresses. Despite all the challenges that we are facing now, more and more merchants see the benefit of BNPL and how it can help them to increase their online sales during the pandemic.
Any industries that look particularly exciting for Hula?
Like I said, we've always been strong in fashion, and that's just continuing to grow even stronger this year. And I see the more adoption of the home and lifestyle and electronic segment. I said that will definitely pick up because of the need versus a want at this point of time. So yeah.
All right, right. Sounds like you guys are doing great stuff, and I look forward to seeing more exciting things coming up from Hula. Thank you, Jason. Jason Wong, Country Manager for Hula. You've been watching AWANI Review with me, Cynthia, and we'll see you again in the next episode. Thank you.